From FCS to a stacked Ole Miss backfield, what do we need to know about Joshua Dye? From the voice of the Thunderbirds, Spencer McLaughlin. He's in the house today. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country. Thanks to fans like you taking in content like this, we will never not be appreciative for that. On today's show, we're talking about Joshua Dye with the voice of the Thunderbirds and Locked On College Football host Spencer McLaughlin, as we learn about this running back from a man who literally saw every single snap of this player play. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to our insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, and that is your team every single day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, well, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, Spencer, one thing I'm pretty excited about is we were sitting here and got a transfer from Joshua Dye, and everybody's like, okay, Southern Utah and everything, and it clicked with me. It's like, hey, we can do that. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. The day that my two jobs, which I'm sure Locked On Ole Miss folks didn't know I had until now, cross over like I never imagined they could. This is one of the most exciting days of my professional career, Stephen. My two worlds literally colliding. It's perfect.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You hear stories all the time about running backs from FCS going into the upper divisions of college football. But before Joshua Dye committed, I would be willing to bet that Ole Miss fans didn't know that Southern Utah existed.
Well, that depends on your football dedication. We're not exactly North Dakota State. Last few years have been a consistent upswing, and they have bordered on snapping an FCS playoff drought by one game each of the last 2 seasons. They've missed it, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Most people probably wouldn't know where Cedar City is on a map. I can tell you, Cedar City in the whole Southern Utah area, beautiful, wonderful, great people, good football town, and Josh Dye, darn good football player. One of the best that the program has had in the last couple of years.
How far away is Southern Utah University from the Four Corners?
From the Four Corners? That's a good question, actually, because that's Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and
Utah.
And Utah. I want to say 3-ish hours. Four. It's pretty far west. Cedar City's not far from Vegas, about 2.5 hours.
Okay. So let's get into the Joshua Dye situation. He's a running back. He has you can look at his highlights on YouTube all over the place. He's an electric factory. I think he had 28 touchdowns, 1,800 yards at Southern Utah last year. What do we need to know about this running back?
Well, if you've seen any of the highlights of him running in Cedar City, then you probably heard me announcing his action this year, and you just maybe didn't know it. But yeah, the biggest thing that stands out with Josh Dye, he is a home run hitter. And what he was able to do this past year, as well as anybody in the country, was create explosive runs. His ability to get to the outside and to just hit that accelerator and take off and then not get caught was really a difference maker for this SU run game. And he's coming from an offensive system that has had back-to-back seasons with two very different tailbacks, honestly, over 1,800 yards. The year before, Targy Lamson set the SU single-season rushing yards record, and this past year, Josh Dye set the single-season rushing touchdown record. And you know, it's a place that wants to have a bell cow type of back. He can handle a big workload. Obviously, going into the SEC, it's a big jump up from the UAC that Southern Utah was in this past year. They'll be in the Big Sky starting in 2026 going forward, but it's definitely a step up. But this is a guy who can take the ball as many times as you need him to at the level that he just played. And before he was at Southern Utah, he was at UTEP. He and his brother Josiah were both with the Miners in Conference USA. So he's bounced around a little, and the explosion is what really stands out. Just he can run between the tackles, no doubt. He was most effective when he got outside on the perimeter, and he can get the ball in a lot of different ways. But if he gets to that next level, he has got legit speed, and nobody in our conference was able to keep up with him a lot in the open field.
How is his pass catching ability?
Solid. I don't think it's something that you highlight with him. It's not something he was asked to do a ton this past year. Southern Utah had former Utah transfer Braden Whistler back there as kind of the scat pass catching guy. So, they rotated those two a decent amount. Dye was usually in there to run the ball. I think he absolutely can catch passes. It's not as if he had major drop issues. I think they just couldn't, put 40 to 45 touches into his workload. He would routinely, Steven, all throughout the year, carry the ball at least 25 times, often 30 or more. This is a Southern Utah program, and our head coach, Delane Fitzgerald, who's done a great job, he makes it very clear every season his teams are going to run the football. They are going to run it. They're going to run, and then they're going to run it some more. It's very Sharon Moore, well, not Sharon Moore anymore. It's very Michigan-esque. It's very Kyle Whittingham at Utah. There are other coaches. Mario Cristobal fits that mold. It's a run the ball mentality. So you have that bell cow back. So he wasn't asked to do it a lot, but when he ran routes, he's got the good speed. He's got good hands, and he's shifty. So I think if Ole Miss works him into that sort of capacity, I think he's more than capable of doing it. He just hasn't done it a lot in his career. He barely played at UTEP. He came to Southern Utah and burst onto the scene. For a while, it looked like he was going to reset the SU single season rushing yardage record for a second straight year and came up just short of that. But yeah, he's a really talented guy, and certainly in the pass catching realm, more than capable.
Multiple years of eligibility?
I believe so, yeah. I don't think he's used more than 3. I'm trying to think back. It was so long ago, but I'm pretty sure he's got at least 2 left. I can check on that real quick.
Yeah, because when you look at Ole Miss, obviously Kewan Lacy is the main guy, the 1,600-yard rusher,
right.
But running back 2 through running back 7 for Ole Miss is going to be a knife fight in spring and beyond to try and get carries. I know that John David Baker does not want to use Kewan Lacy in the same way that Charlie Weiss Jr. did, where he had 300 carries in a season. He wants to keep a little tread on the tire where it comes to Kewan Lacy. So it's going to be Joshua Dye competing with Mekhi Frazier, competing with just back after back after back at Ole Miss.
Yeah, he was a redshirt sophomore this past year, so should have 2 years of eligibility left. He redshirted 1 year at UTEP and then had a season that wasn't a redshirt and then played at Southern Utah. So, yeah, could be a Rebel for the next 2 years if he wants to be.
All right, when we come back, we are going to talk to Spencer. We're going to ask him to put on his Locked On College Football hat a little bit, and we're going to talk to him about the Ole Miss Rebels and the retention that they had in the transfer portal coming up right after this. It is the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, one final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you are a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. If that bet wins, make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those of you that show there's more to the score than what's just on the screen. AJ Storr moving to sixth man for Ole Miss men's basketball has unlocked this player, and as a result, he is becoming the unquestioned star of the team, even though the results aren't exactly what we want at the moment. These remind us of what it actually takes to raise the bar. That's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit. We put the same passion into every Mazda model. Highlights that make the real and what it took to get there, well, that's what makes it count. So find yourself a Mazda dealership, get yourself into a Mazda car, because there's more to Mazda, because there's more to you. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to, and get a 5-star review. Cost absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast in America. You already live your team every single day. Now take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com or check the link down in the show notes to learn more. All right, Spencer. Ole Miss, number 2 in the transfer portal, according to 24/7, but we're going to focus on retention on this little segment, because the reality of what Ole Miss got to do didn't get publicized that much, because 3 of the best players in college football at their position were very much transfer portal targets for essentially 2 months. And Ole Miss being able to retain those positions means that this season, with that transfer portal class, they have the talent that might even exceed the group that just made the playoffs.
It's certainly possible. To me, we have to get word on Trinidad Chambliss before I'm ready to go there. I do think there's something ironic, humorous, however you want to phrase it, that the number 1 portal class that I talked about on my Monday episode of Locked On College Football, Lane Kiffin. And number 2, the place that Lane Kiffin left. So everything that Lane Kiffin touches turns to gold in the portal, apparently. And the work that the Rebels have done has been really good. And I'll tell you, as an Oregon guy, Steven, by the way, you're talking about the Super Bowl on that FanDuel read. Go Hawks. Anyway, as an Oregon guy, I will tell you, Blake Purchase is a really nice pickup for the Rebels. I am a big fan. Purchase was going to start if either of Oregon's edges had declared for the draft. They both came back. Former 4-star recruit, has spent 3 years with the Ducks, has been a key contributor for 2, was kind of injured and then redshirted his second season. I like that pickup a lot. But, you know, I like when the spring football practice rolls around across the country, and I think it's Bill Connolly at ESPN comes out with his metrics for S&P Plus to rate the different teams. And one thing that he looks at that I pay attention to is returning production. Because in the transfer portal era, for guys like you and me and a lot of college football fans, very easy to get caught up on the new players that you bring in. It's just as important, unless you're Clemson and Dabo Swinney last year, who you bring back and the core of players, or Penn State as well, that you've got to build on from the season before. So I think that Ole Miss keeping these guys around is notable. I don't think they were, throw in names that Lane Kiffin wanted to bring to LSU for all the portal wins that he's had, Jordan Seaton being the most high profile one recently. There have also been some guys that Lane Kiffin has gone after who he hasn't wound up getting in the portal. Sam Leavitt was not their top option at the time that he committed, or the week before he committed, I should say, because they were trying to get Damon Williams from Washington. They were going after Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. They wound up with Sam Levitt, who's really good. He's just coming off an injury, and I think that's about the only thing that could derail Lane Kiffin's 2026 season and bring joy to fans everywhere in the great city of Oxford, I would imagine. But yeah, what Pete Golding has done, and I will fully admit that I was hesitant to jump on board with him being the right head coaching hire. To this point, I don't know how much better things could be going. Obviously, he's got to put a full season together, but won a couple playoff games, darn near went to the national championship game, and then goes on the offseason trail with the quote-unquote portal king trying to bring most of your roster and staff over and to keep as many guys as he has, and potentially Chambliss if he gets the waiver approved. I think Pete Golding is off to a stellar start to his tenure in Oxford.
Yeah, he hasn't necessarily put a step wrong as far as the Ole Miss fans goes. He went well on his way to almost becoming a legend in 2 months' time in Oxford, Mississippi. And I get it. The schedule is going to be a little bit more difficult in the fall. But this team, according to Walker Jones, who's going to be on tomorrow's Locked On Ole Miss podcast, said this team could be more talented than the team that just went to the playoffs with what they brought in. And that's, we talked about Joshua Dye, an 18-yard rusher in FCS, and everybody's going to say, well, that's
1,800.
1,800, yeah, 1,800-yard rusher.
18 yards wouldn't be that impressive.
Yeah.
Guy had this 18-yard run. I saw it all in that play.
It was awesome. It was amazing.
It was incredible.
Yeah, but he did that, and like everybody's going to say FCS, and I was like, well, Cody Schrader basically ripped the SEC apart, and he was D2 at Mizzou a couple of years ago, and you never know what to expect. Now, like I said,
Trinidad Chambliss was D2.
Yeah.
That's below FCS, by the way. I'm sure there are some D2 schools that can compete at the FCS level. I want to make that clear. I'm sure that can happen. But if you were just ranking the order of college football based on pedigree, it's Power 4, G6, FCS, and then D2 and D3, and then JUCO.
And the top of FCS can probably beat the bottom of D1. Or
yeah, they can.
FBS.
Yeah. Like Montana, I mean, they can't beat the top. Montana State last year played at Oregon. They got walloped, and they were the national champions. But we have seen, North Dakota State over the years, or South Dakota State, I think, beat Oklahoma State a few years ago. I think I'm remembering that correctly. You're correct. Is what I'm trying to say.
It happens nearly every year.
Yeah, it does. It comes close to happening, and if North Dakota State jumped up into the Mountain West, I don't think they would, or the New World Pac-12, I should say. I don't think they'd win it. I think they'd be right in the center of it. They would not be at the bottom.
Well, if you want to look at it apples to apples, look at what James Madison did.
Yeah.
2 years to the college football playoff coming from FCS. I mean, they actually filed for a waiver to try to get into a bowl game their very first season in FBS.
They weren't allowed because of this dumb transition rule. They should have been allowed to compete in a bowl game. I think they were able to because some schools opted out of playing in a bowl game, and so the NCAA said, "Okay, JMU can play."
Yeah. Really interesting stuff. But the point of what we're talking about is Ole Miss is likely, Trinidad Chambliss has his appeal meeting on Wednesday with the NCAA. That doesn't affect anything to do with court. That is with the NCAA, where they have one last opportunity to make this right before it gets handled in the legal system. But if Trinidad Chambliss gets this waiver, Kewan Lacy's back, Lucas Carneiro, that is 3 positions to where they are arguably the best player in college football at their position. And that makes this football season even more intriguing, even though you look at September 19th in that game, that all you have to do is name get the date, and you know exactly what that game is. They play Georgia and Oxford. They play Missouri and Oxford. They go to Texas. They go to Florida. It's going to be a more difficult schedule, but whenever you have three positions that affect winning like those three positions do, got to be feeling pretty good about this fall.
Yeah, I think you do, and the schedule is definitely a challenge. By the way, I'll just throw this out there, though. If Chambliss is back, I think you'll be all right. If not, look out for Louisville week 1. Jeff Brom is a darn good football coach. He has been running a real solid program for the Cardinals over the last couple of years. Neutral site game in Tennessee. I don't know why.
Ole Miss fans like going to Nashville. They're going to Nashville twice next year.
Yeah, I don't know. Just make it a home and home. Play a game in Oxford. Play a game in Louisville. It's not rocket science, but apparently it is because college football has done this for a long time. So, I mean, Nashville's a great city. Great city for sure. I'm not trying to dog on the city. I'm just saying I like playing games on campus. Call me crazy. So, yeah, Ole Miss will be very battle tested. It's pretty wild that we're sitting here recording this segment early February, Stephen, and we're waiting on a national championship altering decision that is not being made on the football field.
Yep.
That's college football nowadays.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I view it. And I don't know if you're in that same boat. I don't think it's crazy to say Ole Miss with that schedule, if you have Trinidad, Chambliss, there's nobody on that schedule you can't beat.
Yep.
But tell me about the
top five.
Tell me about the option at quarterback if Chambliss doesn't wind up winning the situation and getting to play. I mean, there's got to be a drop-off, right?
There is. It's Deuce Knight, the left-handed quarterback that was at Auburn last year. He will be the quarterback if for some reason Trinidad didn't make it in. But you're still dealing with a first-time starter, which the difference is with Trinidad, you're a top 5 team. Without Trinidad, they're probably 20th in the country. So there is a drop-off. But, yeah, you're swimming in the deep waters if Trinidad Chambliss gets his waiver.
You are, though. Let me throw this out there. Olive branch to Ole Miss fans here as we wrap this up. What would you have said, or what would I have said, or anyone last year going into the season about the idea of surviving an injury to Austin Simmons?
Yeah.
I think the conversation very easily, and generally speaking, it would have been reasonable to say, well, you got a guy that came up from Ferris State as the backup, so I don't know if that's really going to be a dynamite option there. I mean, Deuce Knight's talent is off the charts. Sure, your right tackle has to become your left tackle and protect his blind side, but man, perhaps that system
last year.
Yeah, perhaps that system is just really tailor-made for quarterbacks to the point where I think the difference between those two, just off the top of my head, is Deuce Knight, regardless of the level of football, just hasn't played very much football, and Chambliss had. That does matter. Mm-hmm. And I think 100%. That would be the biggest concern, but I wouldn't write Ole Miss off into 5-7 oblivion if Chambliss gets denied and Deuce Knight winds up being the starter, because I've seen a proof of concept with Ole Miss over the last couple of years, and with Pete Golding being there without Lane Kiffin, that, yeah, they know what they're doing, and they do have weapons to surround him.
So, yeah, it should be pretty interesting. What do you got going on at Locked On College Football right now, man?
Man, all things transfer portal, fallout, off-season drama, Pac-12 against Mountain West. That's flaring up again because why the heck not as they try to figure out their media rights situation. All the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth. All year round, that is how we roll over at Locked On College Football.
Yeah, and as an Ole Miss fan, I will say go Wazoo because we are all Wazoo fans.
Yes, yes, indeed. I've got it in my notes to make sure I get a segment on Wazoo upcoming here because they've got their third head coach in 3 years, and I think Wazoo could be. I think Kirby Moore could do very well in Pullman.
Anyway, Spencer, thank you for stopping by, buddy, and we'll talk to you later.
My pleasure, Stephen. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks for tuning into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk about the transfer portal and the football roster and basketball and baseball and all that stuff. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show and get all the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels as well, so check that out. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get the Locked On Ole Miss podcast ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. For audio, make sure you check out a second listen. Locked On College Football, awesome. Locked On SEC, awesome. Check that out as well. So hotty toddy, everybody, and we will talk to you later. Let's go.